Welcome back. It is always a good day. When I wake up, I give thanks, and I know today is a day that I have the honor of introducing you to another intriguing human being. I told you you have to be good. My puppy is in the studio with me. You have to be good or you'll have to go in the house. Okay? All right, that's enough groaning. She's got a little pillow under there. Um, Little bit of housekeeping. Boy, the show just keeps expanding. Minneapolis, thank you. Minneapolis back strong. Chicago, Illinois, another great downloaded spot. Fullerton, Oakland, and San Diego, my top three in California. Burleson, Texas, bring it on, Burleson. I mean, I've never been there, but I'm telling you what, the downloads were massive last week. Melbourne, Australia, always big fans of The Next Room. I love you guys down under. Thank you. Seattle, Washington came back up, which is fabulous. And Dublin, Ireland. Come on, bring it on. So, those are just a few of my top cities. Thank you for tuning into The Next Room. It's where we talk about death, but really, to talk about death, you have to have life, right? So it's not a depressing show. It is a show about why we're here, what is our purpose. And there's a lot of grief surrounding sometimes. I've had shows on suicide, which was last week. It was pretty heavy, but also really uplifting. We talk a lot about grief, of course, is always a hot button, the afterlife, wills and trusts, getting your affairs in order so that we can relax into a great life experience and not worry about any of that stuff. Because let's get honest here. Death is something all of us will experience. There is no escaping. Doesn't matter how many, you know, dollars you have in your bank account, you cannot escape it. Okay, the guest today, I was introduced to Chip Bell as Chipper Bro. Okay, name ringing a bell? It should. If you Google him, you're going to find just an enormous amount of cool stories surrounding my guest today. I met Chipper Bro in Santa Barbara in the 80s. Okay, I was a 20 something DJ on the rock and roll radio station KTYD that's still rocking after 50 years. He was a 20 something, let me get this straight, world champion freestyle Frisbee superstar, right? I am not kidding you. He has a remarkable journey and a remarkable story of where he is today. Um, we haven't really seen each other in the past 30 years. I mean, I knew his wife through a mutual friend, Rose, but I haven't really connected with him. So, of all places, Chipper and I reconnect at a funeral. Sound familiar? The Next Room audience loves a good funeral. So I just want to say a shout out to Ardie. Ardie is Steve's mom, and she had a beautiful service. So Chipper and I are sitting in a mass in Southern California, honoring this remarkable woman who had a great family and hearing about her life. And it was a magnificent life this woman had. So a funeral of all places reconnects us. Chipper and I end up at a table having a little nosh after the service. And within 2 minutes, I was thinking, I have got to get him on my show. He is going to be absolutely so much fun to talk to. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please meet my old friend who looks the same, a little bit more gray in those crazy curls of his on that beautiful head of hair, but he looks pretty much the same as he did 30 years ago. Welcome to The Next Room, Chipper Bro.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you so much, and good morning to you. It's such an honor to be here with you. And you're right, it was within 2 minutes we were chatting about this opportunity to be together. And I'm honored to be on your show and kind of reiterating what you said. Thank you, Ardie, for bringing us together at a funeral. And there we are connecting at a level through, sadness, but you and I found gladness at this moment. And it was fun to reminisce about the 80s and meet your awesome husband, Tommy Bro, and just get to reacquaint with you after, like you said, I mean, it's 30 plus years. I was always been a huge fan of yours. So when you were sitting right next to me at the table, I was in awe as I am now.
Oh man, come on. I mean, I go back to thinking about the first time I saw you. I want to say it was on East Beach. It might have been part of the Bud Light tour that you were on, and you were with three other guys, and you were performing with this Frisbee, things that didn't seem possible. I mean, I was a kid that grew up tossing a Frisbee in the backyard. But here you were like spinning it on your finger and catching it behind your back. And the four of you would be in a line that would roll from one hand to the next, all the way across you guys. It was remarkable. Just such a thrill to have you here. And as I said, I will post links to everything so people don't have to go search. Um, Chipper, let's talk about how your career and how you got started and how it has brought you to where you are now. Because you have a podcast, which I will post the link to, which I love, by the way. It is just incredible what you're doing. Just getting started with that. And you're also in the middle of writing a book. So let's talk about first, let's go back and talk about Ultimate Frisbee. Or is it Ultimate or did you call it Freestyle?
You're right on point, Jane. And the family of Frisbee uh, activities, one of them is Ultimate Frisbee, huge popular sport. And that's how I got started. But to really put it into context about why I chose freestyle, kind of the show off hot dog sport, I'd have to roll back to about 1968. And my mom put me in the Fiesta Parade of Santa Barbara, that traditional parade that goes up State Street and would go right past KTYD and back in the day. So fun. And I was a bit nervous. I'm 1968. Gosh, I must have been 6 or 7 years old. And mom gave me some incentive that said, if you go to the very end of the parade, there's a carnation ice cream truck at the end with the little wooden spoon. And so I was so excited to get that. Well, as I entered into the parade, mom had me in a little sombrero hat and I had little Mexican white outfit on. I was trying to blend right in with this beautiful tradition. So she just launched me in. I started going up State Street, and she just said, "Smile and wave." So I turned to the audience and I kind of gave a smile and I waved, and I was real nervous, and I saw they smiled and waved back, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And I went to the other side of the parade. I was kind of working the street going up and smile and wave, and then Jane, it was kind of funny because I naturally, well, I'm a show off, so I started to do like these funny faces, and the crowd would do a funny face. And I would go to the other side of the street and put my arms up and do big waves with peace signs, and they'd all do big waves with peace. And pretty soon, I felt like I could like almost orchestrate the audience, and I felt like I was passing this joy on, but more so selfishly, they were giving it back. And that just led me to be like, I felt so comfortable in front of people and big crowds, and then kind of rolling back then up to the late 70s and early 80s, one of the sports phenomenons going on was alternative sports. It was the birth of extreme with the skateboarders, coming out of the pool at the Tea Garden.
Sure.
Tom Sims was coming out, and Chuck Barfoot, and the Dogtown kids out of LA. All that was just intriguing to me. And the word freestyle just really captivated me coming out of the 60s and 70s. You know how it was, Jane, in those windswept days, playing outside all day. And, we had to be home when the street lights came on. And what we did during that time, being outside from Red Rock to the Channel Islands and all the beaches and running around naked at More Mesa. I just had this free style of growing up. I had a really awesome mom and dad. They separated at an early age, but they were always there for me. And my dad taught me at an early age that, Chipper, we were born into a royalty. You have the mountains and the ocean. Go enjoy it. And
Wow.
so I did. And so finding freestyle Frisbee gave me the opportunity, as you mentioned, it's catching it behind your back, catching it behind the head, doing a front roll, doing a body roll, and throwing it back to your partner to get the best little glide that comes up, and then they do the same thing. And we become this cooperative freestyle thing. And what was really fun, it was a show-off sport. And turned out, I found out there was about 30 professional tournaments in the United States for freestyle all across North America. 1980, 81, 82 was the North American Series Tour. And you could actually make money at it. So at the time I was surfing a lot and I was playing Frisbee, and I was kind of like, wow, I kind of wanted to go pro surfing, but I saw this interesting opportunity for me to really show off and do freestyle and be cooperative, because I like to play with a partner. And I could play with, like you said, the other two guys that I ended up becoming partners with. We would collaborate and co-op together. And in professional Frisbee tournaments, you have judges. And so you put together a routine, and that routine is about 5 minutes long, and you choreograph to the music. So we put our music on, we start our choreography. I was taking dance lessons and ballet lessons over at City College, learning to begin to perform at a higher level, and then incorporating that with the Frisbee. And so you're judged on difficulty, presentation, execution, and those judges will judge you. And one of the first few tournaments I went to, Jane, I didn't even make it out of the preliminaries, having to learn how to, really craft my craft and get better with my partners. And so we did. And it was by 1982, I was really proud to say that, well, it's a nice thing to say because you hold it in your heart, but I became the world champion. And one of the coolest things was calling my mom after she was like, are you going to go to college? What are you doing with your life? And calling her from a phone booth from Santa Cruz, California, and going, Mom, I'm the world champion. And that began to change the whole dynamics of what began after that.
Wow. World champion. I mean, the story that I had heard is that you're standing up there with your partner and you just were doing this performance and then you're waiting to find out and they call sixth place, wasn't you, fifth, fourth, third. And then you looked at your partner and you're like, wow, man, we didn't even place. And then they called your name with your partner as the world champion. That's incredible. What year was that? Was that early 80s?
That was 1982, and that was in
Okay.
Santa Cruz. And you're
Yeah.
right, I mean, that was an interesting feeling because we'd worked so hard at the routine and getting down to the last minute of second place. And I thought, I didn't think we'd won, but I thought maybe we were top five. And but it was that moment though, that when they said that we were number one, that it didn't set in to be like, wow, we are the champions. It set in to be like, we did it. We
Right.
set out a goal, and that was about 18 months in the working. And that what if we even made it to the semifinals? Remember, we didn't even make it out of the prelims the first year, but we didn't give up. And when they put that crown around me, I went, wow. It was the first time I really was like, I can really set goals. I can really stick to it and make that arc go all the way. And it's like, I hope we can make it. I hope we can, but you got to work for hope. And by the time we got there, it was like, oh my gosh, that hope worked. And it was quite a feeling. Like I said, it all changed. We started getting sponsorships, and well, Anheuser-Busch, in fact, we got picked up by the brand Bud Light in 1983 and began
That's
a
huge.
whole tour all around the United States that led around the world, and touring in the Bud Light Frisbee team and the Anheuser-Busch companies. Jane, I think you'll get a kick out of this because they found a way that we would be the opening act in their pro concert series tours, including we opened up for Cheap Trick, Molly
Wow.
Hatchet, Toto, Jan and Dean, Beach Boys, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and the list went on and on. In fact, we did the first American rock and roll tour in China. We went with Jan and Dean. And I know we don't have time for that one because that's a story that led up to a pro-democracy movement in 1987 that the Bud Light Frisbee team and the Jan and Dean members had sparked the demonstrations that led up to Tiananmen Square in 1989. With the guy at the tank, remember the guy standing there with all
Wow.
well, that's a different story. There's so much to talk about Jan and Dean and what happened in that rock and roll part of history. It's just fascinating. But as time went on, I ended up meeting Kelly, my beautiful bride, as you know her. And I was still playing professional Frisbee at the time. And so I said, Kelly, you're coming with me. So we traveled the country around together. It was so fun. I'm like, honey, you won't believe this lifestyle. So that went around for a while. What blessings happened? And Kelly, she got pregnant with our first baby, Tori. And we're moving along. And she says, Chipper, I think you may have to get a job with better health care benefits. We got a nice cash paying job, but I don't think I can go around the country much being 8 and 9 months pregnant and this and that.
Right.
And I was kind of getting at the end of the road. It had been 8 and 9 years on the road and traveling the world. And I was ready to settle down too. So it was a great turning point, meeting Kelly and having that transition and then finding my new careers and opportunities after that.
Man, it's fascinating. Here you are, an opening act, which I think is super creative. I mean, I would rather watch you four than maybe hear a band that I wasn't crazy about, and then wait for the headliner. What a great way to, I mean, you must have been so buzzing, opening up for Cheap Trick. I mean, come on. That's insane. So you settle down, you have this beautiful wife. I know that you have 4 children, um, and you pivot and you find your career like your second or third career. Um, it brings you to this point in our lives where, we are both gently aging. Um, what are you doing now? Like what is the meaning of the podcast and where are you headed with the podcast and your eventual memoir that you're writing?
Well, that's a great question because in the now, it's a lot of dynamics going on in my life and the people around me that contribute to my ideas and next ventures. But to kind of put the podcast and my book and things that are coming up, I'll just go back a little bit after the Frisbee career. Again, having to look for a job. I mean, I was a surfer and a Frisbee player. I mean, what a resume. I mean, I kind of put world champion on there, but I didn't know if that would get me an executive position somewhere. But my friend told me about the company Patagonia. And, their headquarters based here in Ventura. And I went and applied, and I did show that resume. It said surfer, Frisbee player, and Patagonia said perfect. And I did a career there for over 25 years.
Wow.
I became a brand ambassador, and I spoke the mission, values, and purpose. I mean, what a better company to begin to learn how to do business with, right? I mean, to me, that was the alternative to the old corporate structures and hierarchies and those, I don't know, kind of ugly corporations out there that didn't have social or environmental conscious. And that fit me because of that freestyle lifestyle that had come out of. I'm like, wow, I care for the environment. I care for people. So it made a natural progression. And the jobs and career I did was, again, 25 plus years. I began to speak the voice of Patagonia and got to become a public speaker for the brand and began to think, wow, what if I became a public speaker someday? Quite frankly, at the end of the day, my 25 plus years there, again, quite frankly, I'm not that into clothes. I'm into the brand. I'm into the philosophies. I'm into that. I'm not a clothes guy. I'm not a logo guy. I just never have been. So I was like, kind of tired of the next line, the next season, the next stuff that people don't really need. I don't care what brand it is. There's enough thrift stores to go around that So my philosophy was just changing a little bit. So I stopped working at Patagonia and I went on to become a public speaker. I got hired on to a couple agents and I was like, I'm going to rock this, man, because I'm back to showing off. I want to give the audience what I love, what I do. And in fact, Jane, I would start my show. I got some pretty big gigs. You know, I was touring around and got some public speaking opportunities based on mission, values, and purpose, and things I've learned about my freestyle and how I could share that with people. Well, I'd open up the show because, you know, I got to break the ice sometimes. I would do a Frisbee routine.
Really?
Play my Frisbee in front of 500 people and throw it to the audience and go, oh,
Wow.
so much better now. And then enter the stage. Well, that was the exact time going into that little thing called COVID hit. And
Ah,
the career went south for 2 years, you know. And I wasn't interested in the Zoom room at the time to do my talks. I couldn't show off enough, you know. I body language and things that I think connect with my
yeah.
audience. So as we were moving along, you know, you mentioned Rose and Steve, and they're beautiful friends of ours. I just love
Hmm.
them so much. They brought us together. Well, you and I were friends long, long time, but
Yeah.
we were talking one day and Steve says to me, you know, Chipper, every time I come over, we talk story, we have coffee, we check the surf. And I have never here, after 35 years of hanging out with you, they've been married 20. Um, I've never heard the same story. Like you always have a different story for me. And I am intrigued. He goes, you should start a podcast. I was like, I don't know. How do you do that? I want to be public speaking. And I still want to do public speaking. But Rose, being as you, radio engineer, you know, you got both personality and engineer, you get it. And Rose said, I'll help you. Steve, as you know, is an amazing artist. He made my logos, you know. And so we came up with stories from the trailer with your host, Chipper Bro. And I sit in a 1956 Ken Skill trailer. Again, Jane, you know what my friends are now, just briefly from around the world. I have these friends and stories that I pull into the trailer, and we just have a conversation and talk, and and they're inspiring. I want everybody to know about the one that from Sean Thompson. And there's in fact, several of the stories speaks of death, and
Mm.
and the takeaways are inspiring. Not for me. I mean, they were for me, but it's for everyone that's around and listens for stories from the trailer. And so I've been doing that for a bit. But also, I wanted to let you know too. You know, we started our surf school, and we talked about how this show is based on purpose. And I, working at Patagonia, quite frankly, you know, we had 4 kids now. There was one, two, three, and now there was 4. And so we decided that Kelly would be best as a stay-home mom because it was so hard to farm them out. We didn't want to do that. And 2, it was expensive. So I went and did a part-time job, and she said, why don't you teach surfing and Frisbee? Start a surf school. And I was like, all right. So we started surfclass.com. You know, my entrepreneur spirit said, why not? And we're 24 years old now. We bring about 1,200 students a year through our program. And Jane, that's amazing. What we've done, and more so, you know, we're a business of 1% for the planet. So we give back 1% of our sales to environmental organizations that for us relate to ocean science, and other types of nonprofits around our city. But that led up to us organically. We had teaching kids that were blind. We had the
Wow.
Santa Barbara Braille Institute call us up one day and said, hey, can you take some blind kids surfing? And I was like, oh, yeah, heck yeah, why not? And I hung up. How are we going to do that? So we did training. We went through, we have amazing volunteers, and we created with collaboration called the Best Day Foundation. And that gave us so much purpose more than just pay up, stand up surfing, you know, bless their hearts. I love it. Ocean science, marine biology. this went to next level where I was being taught. And we put it out there that we could bring this in. Well, Jane, the Best Day Foundation service now over 2,000 kids with special needs. Mm. And we ran that for about 4 years. The lead person, I think of his name off the top of my head, but the man who started the 501c3 with all the ideas, he put the paperwork into the state and he passed away. Mm. And we had a paddle out for him. And we all got together. And it was the saddest thing, not only to lose him, and we're in the ocean, and his children said, we don't want to do it anymore. It's too much burden on us to think about Dad. And we all cried because that ended the Best Day Foundation for us. And we didn't want to take back on the 501c3. I'm not a paperwork guy personally, but it just went defunct. But what we got to do in our purpose, but that led to Kelly and I going, wow, there's a lot of nonprofits here in our town of Ventura. Let's go find one. Kelly loves social causes. I love environmental. So we decided to volunteer for that nonprofit for 1 year. And we created the Aloha Beach Festival. And this is our 15th year. And Jane, my pencil and sponsorship and volunteer books are moving today. It's going to be Labor Day weekend 2024. And again, this year we're going to pick the Merito Foundation, Merito Foundation. Beautiful program for multicultural students learning environmental and social work. What that's done for us, Jane, is that going all the way back in giving back. For me, playing Frisbee and Freestyle, I was wanting to give back to the audience that you too can be free and you can do your own style. Even a big guy like me out there dancing around with leg warmers on in the 80s and 90s, it just gave people that chance, especially men, to be like, I just want to be who I am and be okay with that. It's okay to hug a man. It's okay to high five a guy and give him a hug, and by letting all that other stuff go and to be yourself. And then again, back to Aloha, it's given us that opportunity to bring our community together. I didn't think that we would have hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. Again, now 15 years of doing it. We've given to 15 different organizations. And this is where we just do it from our kitchen table. And if the people that I want to inspire are at work, like, what can I do? What can I do to make a difference? It's like, well, pick a nonprofit. Maybe you like hiking, go help with trail restoration. Maybe you like social causes, go do the food share. And bring that back not only to your family and show them what we're doing and do that as a family unit, but bring it back to your workplace too. Tell people what you did to volunteer and get your department to do it now. Now your department goes out and now you're fulfilling something that didn't cost money or, just took time and energy and maybe some gas fuel. But overall, it's easy to connect with community when you put that hope out there and go, I hope it can happen. Well, again, that hope can be earned to go out and do it. And you're doing hope and making things happen and taking action and creating that arc. But it's been a great purposeful journey in that part there for
Boy, so many things to touch on. Passing joy, here your mother brought this charming little child to the Fiesta Parade, and you knew early on, that was your purpose, to pass joy. Mm-hmm. And I love the quote from you, you gotta work for hope, Chipper Bro. Just beautiful, Chipper. And really, it's really says a lot about where you are in your life right now, that you're not just going to sit in a chair in front of a TV. You and Kelly have created this Aloha Beach Festival, which anybody in Southern California, it's coming up Labor Day 2024, just in case you're wondering what year this was recorded. Um, and how inspiring that you're doing what you love and then giving back to things that are important to you, like the environment and social causes. Wow, good for you. Good for you, Chipper Bro. What a fun show this has been for me. Um, let's touch on the fact that, you know, we met at a funeral. Do you have any kind of fear or trepidation or anything attached to, you know, we're here and then we're not one day? How do you feel about that? I mean, or do you not even give it any thought?
Jane, I've given a lot of thought. And, I was thinking about what would I say on your show. But I'll just speak from my heart. When I first learned about death, and I think this is a great metaphor for a lot of people around the world, but my first experience was my goldfish. And I think goldfish were put on the planet so we could begin to have our first experience for kids to learn about what that means and how a parent would begin to describe that. That's the first time. And I love the fact, and this is pre-Nemo, that mom would say, well, just flush it down the toilet. He'll go back to the ocean. That always made me feel better. And then it
I love
seemed
your I just have to say I love your mom. Your mother is wow, what a cool, righteous woman. From putting you in a parade to telling you that your little goldfish is going to go back to the ocean. I mean, very cool.
and being open-minded enough to say, you be who you are. And
Right?
I'm going to play Frisbee and surf. And surfing in the 70s wasn't the coolest thing on the block. It was
Right.
really fast, and especially playing alternative sports instead of basketball, football, baseball, it just didn't fit with me. But mom was always supportive of letting me be who I am. And I think I gave that back to our children as well. But yeah, where were we going with it?
The
Oh,
goldfish and death.
thank you. And then the next part I think that I learned was when my grandpa passed away. And that was the first time I went to a funeral, first time I saw an open casket, first time I saw a dead body. And, you know, it's, it's kind of that first learning, I'm trying to describe the words because it's not words that you feel like. It's hard to describe when you start feeling what death feels like, especially when it's your grandpa that you were just tugging on his robe and eating cornflakes with him and playing around. And he was there one day, and next thing I'm looking at him, and it was more in my body and through my soul that I was like trying to process what was going on at 8 years old. And and then it began to find, all of a sudden you have a friend. And my little buddy Charlie Mullins, he ran his bike into the street in Alomar. And he sits next to me in my classroom, now I'm in fourth grade. And Charles died. And I was trying to wrap my head around like wow, he's there one day. We were just playing. We're going to ride our bikes over the bridge by Oak Park and go play over there. And next thing, it's like, how do I grasp with, I was like reaching out to his desk and nothing was there. And that was the first time thinking, I'll never see him again. Like I was concepting, like, when you're gone, you're gone. It's not like, my grandpa, I felt like he'd always be there because it was family for some reason. But when it was a friend, he wasn't in my family, but I'm not going to get to hang out with that kid again. Slowly but surely, as I grew up, getting to be a teenager and stuff, losing friends as teenagers through car accidents, and things were beginning to come forward. And it made me realize that it's a blink of an eye. It starts to realize, someone asked me at an earlier age, are you afraid to die? Because I was kind of a risk taker doing stuff. And I replied, I'm actually afraid not to live. And I wanted to do everything I could do at the highest level. And, mentioning back to, the mountains in the ocean, we would go up those creeks and go up into the Santa Barbara mountain range, or find waterfalls and find things, and realizing we were taking risks. And I was like, hanging onto a rock and a limb and a branch. And my buddy's like, one more, pull up. And it's raining, it's going. And we're 15 years old. And I could die. But I was like, I could live too. I'm going to crack this thing. I'm going to go up. And I thought more about what it was like to live. And so I kept that mantra going as I traveled the world, especially, you get on jets and airplanes and cars and you're trapped, you're like, and I'm realizing my friends could just like that. I was like, wow. It's just shocking how fast you lose a friend. And then I just think that as my spirituality kicks in, I get a little more wiser, I believe. My hope is wisdom someday, but I'm getting wiser and learning about death, and watching Kelly's parents pass away after 66 years of marriage, and they passed within 50 days apart.
Wow.
And to see what that's like, and all the stuff that goes with it, like 2 lifetimes of stuff. And I'm looking at their treasures, and the kids have all their stuff already. And to see what happens at the end of the day, at the end of the life. But again, that spirituality made me feel, and it was one of the first times that I saw, somebody described to me that the afterlife is the most, and I'm sure you've said this on your show, but I've heard that it's the most brightest light you could ever see. It's so light. Every molecule is light, so light that it's so bright. And it's the molecule shining off the flowers, off the thing, off of everything. And I realized that we're actually in light. We're here. And then I started to see the reflections of the uh, light on the ocean. And when it would twinkle out there, I went, wow, those are lives passing through right now. The light, they're going into the light. And I look forward to that. And then, I was raised, I guess, Presbyterian, Catholic. Excuse me, Catholic. We raised our kids Catholic. I was, I guess, Christian. And then I found Buddhism. And I kind of weave it all in, I have a beautiful relationship with God, and I have a beautiful relationship with kind of like, and we wonder what's next. And so I start to, some of my Buddha ways are like reincarnation, So I think, well, what do we want to come back as? And as I become wiser, I'm like, let's choose that carefully if I have a choice. And, I think in this life, what am I doing in this life? What is my purpose right now? And do I have to repeat this again? Or do I get to go to the next level as I seek that path of enlightenment?
This is good. This is all really good. Thank you for just opening up and talking like this and sharing these thoughts, because um, you're not afraid to die. You're afraid not to live. And I love that. And it is a higher power of your understanding. No one gets there the same way. There's no way for any 2 human beings to have the same relationship with what is, their higher power, or lack of higher power, if that's what you so choose. I honor that as well. Man, this is good. Chipper, you're just going to have to come back on the show. I want to give you a chance to say the final words here as we wrap up the next room. And I'm very grateful that you were readily available and ready to go, and just wanted to open up and share these thoughts, these it's really good because yeah, you're right. Nobody wants your stuff, you know. I mean, we're all so busy gathering. Do you really need that?
Mm.
Um, there's so many, there's so much crap already being produced on the planet, and we need to be guardians of this beautiful place that we're so privileged to be living. Um, Final thoughts, Chipper Bro. If you tuned in today, it's the next room with Chip Bell. We call him Chipper Bro. I will put links to everything, the Aloha Festival, the surf school, his video of him doing his tricky dicties all over the planet that will blow you away, and his podcast. So you won't have to go search for anything. I got you covered. Um, it is yours. Final thoughts, Chipper Bro.
What a great program. Thank you so much. And, I think for me and the people I like to be around and the people that inspire me are people that have authenticity, that they're true to who they are. They speak their word. I love a woman's voice when she stands up and wants to speak for what is right and more so what is wrong and to be heard. And I love that people can listen. There's something to listen, but are you being heard? And to really take that in and then to look at people and one to think, me personally, I go, wow, I think I already know that person as a stranger. So I don't really have strangers, or I could know that person, or what can that person, um, I'd like to learn something from them. But the bottom line for me is that when you love each other every day. And I see people like I may not agree with them, but I'm learning to just love because they love it. They love it. I want to support that. Oh my gosh, why would I say, no, that's not what I would do? It's going back to letting that person be the person that they are and let that be, no matter who they are. And again, the bottom line is love.
Beautiful. Great final words from my guest, Chipper Bro. Boy, how much fun. I look forward to reconnecting with you many times over. And once again, thank you to Steve's beautiful mother, Ardie, for
Mhm.
connecting us. I always feel so connected with those that have gone before us. Everyone that listens to the show knows that afterlife or what is next, the next chapter, the next room, um, they know I'm a big fan. And so as I was preparing for this morning, it just came into me. I was like, oh, of course I'll say hello, Ardie. Thank you. You know, it was such a beautiful service to celebrate you with your remarkable children and your grandchildren. And as I was connecting with her, the thought came to me, I need to have Steve on the show. And so I'm thinking, I don't know, Steve, I didn't know if he would even be open. And so I shot him a text yesterday and said, hey, you don't have to say yes right away, but would you consider coming on the show? And I got back one text, all caps, yes. So Steve Burrows is coming on the show, who is an amazing artist. He's not only done Chipper's your logo for your podcast, he also did my book with a cherry on top. He did my children's book illustrations. He did all of the illustrations in the next room. So how much fun will it be to have Steve on the show to strip things down, and we'll talk about art and we'll talk about his mother. Um, Boy, I'm just really digging the guests that I've had on the show lately. I love them all. It's just so fun when people are willing to be authentic, real, strip it down, and talk to me, with me, and have a conversation about life and death. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate the book sales. I appreciate the follows on social media. I don't know what's going on Facebook, but the page is like, pew, it's exploding over there. I do have to watch out now because I'm getting those weird spammers, which I think that's the level of success, you know, when you have to block people because they're trying to hit on people. Oh my goodness. Ay, ay, ay. But I do appreciate all of the support that I'm getting, and the new YouTube channel is starting to pick up some steam too. So Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and downloading and showing me where on the planet you are enjoying the next room. Like I said, I think Steve Burrows will be my next guest. I don't think I have anybody scheduled before Steve. So you're in for a big treat again next week on the next room. And thank you so much to Chip Bro, Chipper Bro, Chipper Bro, Chip Bell. Chip, what is your real name? Were you actually named Chip?
When I was born, I was given the nickname Chip, and just took off. And then in the '70s was Chipper, and
Okay.
then they called people Bro in the
Yeah.
'80s, and then
Okay.
Chipper Bro became my signature stage name.
It's perfect. And when you started calling my husband Tommy Bro, I don't think I've seen him so happy. Like he's now referring to himself. I'm like, all right, you can call yourself Tommy Bro. He absolutely loved it. What a pleasure to have you on the next room. Thanks again for listening. And if you can be anything on the planet, anything at all, please be kind. Thanks again for tuning in.